I did a consultation this week with an expat who is no stranger to traveling. He's traveled to quite a few countries and he's been single, for about 10, 15 years. So his situation is that he met a Filipina and soon began to notice some red flags. Now, the reason he was contacting me was to affirm that the red flags that he saw really were what he thought they were. He was unsure of what he was seeing, and so he didn't act on it. And now, by the time that he had contacted me, he had already ended it with the Filipina. So this was more of just sort of a confirmation of events. Now, in his situation, what happened was he met this Filipina, and everything started off looking good in all the usual ways, and they began dating. Now, two things came up which, if it happens to you, should really catch your ear, and you should really start looking at what you're dealing with. Now, the first thing that came up was that she, on a regular basis, would work into the conversation, dropping hints to get him to respond by taking her places, spending money on her. So she would say at first things like, "Oh, I saw this restaurant. I've never been to that restaurant. I'll bet they have really good food. Oh, it would be so nice to go to this restaurant." And as I've mentioned before, the Achilles heel that we men have, and most women know we have this weakness, is that we like to fix problems. We hear a problem and we can't resist trying to fix it, especially if it's a woman involved. So her knowing this kept dropping these hints. "Oh, I'll bet that restaurant's really nice. I've never been there." And of course, he responded with, "Well, let's go. Let's go tomorrow night, or let's go tonight. Okay, we'll go." And then she amped it up. And she was like, "Well, Kai, I've never been to Palawan. I'll bet Palawan's nice. I saw on Facebook, Palawan looks so beautiful." And she never outright asked him, "Can we go to Palawan?" She would just go on about, "Oh, it must be really nice. Gee, I would love to really see that someday." And he responded by, "Well, let me see what the tickets are. Let me see if we can book a flight. Let me check how much the accommodations are." Again, lured into solving her problem. And, of course, mixed in with all of this, wanting to make her happy. So this went on, and he began to notice, well, we're not really spending a whole lot of time talking face to face. Now, by face to face, they were in person dating, but you can be with somebody in person and you're not really talking face to face. So if you're dating someone right now, think about the last couple of dates you were on. Did you talk physically looking at each other face to face? Or were the conversations you usually have, you're both looking forward? I know it might sound like a minor thing, but it's one of these body language sort of things. If the majority of your conversations are where you're looking for, like, for instance, you're walking down the street, and that's fine, that's not a bad thing, but you're walking down the street and you're not really looking at each other and you're having a conversation, that's fine and normal. But if that's the way you always converse, and there aren't times where you're literally sitting on the bed, looking at each other, sitting at the kitchen table, looking at each other, sitting at a park bench, looking at each other, talking, it's something to notice. Because people who are disingenuous, people who have something to hide, they don't like eye contact. And they don't like face-to-face. And they will generally talk to you over their shoulder while they're doing something else. Because they're afraid that they're going to give away some telltale sign that their motives are not what they're pretending to be, or that they're just outright telling a lie. So he begins to notice all these things. And then the second thing, the second red flag that came up that he began to notice, the topic of conversation coming out of her on a consistent basis, even at the very beginning of their dating, was the topic of how her previous boyfriend that she had just broken up with not long before, that previous boyfriend, how he had cheated on her, lied to her, and it really just bothered her, and she was angry and couldn't believe that he would do that to her. And apparently he had ended it with her. He got tired of her complaining and ended it with her and decided he'd rather have a life of variety with other women rather than put up with trying to have a exclusive relationship with her, because obviously that was not very exclusive. So this was the topic of conversation that she kept coming up with the new expat, the one that I'd been speaking with. So here's something to keep in mind. All of us, when we first meet somebody, we're on our best behavior. We want to make a good impression, and there's nothing wrong with that, as long as we're not being deceitful. We should be relaxed and be ourselves, but it's common human nature to be on our best behavior when we first start dating someone. As I told him, it made no sense at all for her in the beginning of their dating to be telling him about her previous boyfriend. Because if you really want to end it and kill any possibility of a new relationship going anywhere, start talking about your ex. What he should have really picked up on is she's not over that guy yet. Now, as I told him, the things she was telling him on and on repeatedly about how he cheated on her and how bad that was and how insulting it was, those are the sort of conversations she should have had with her BFF, best girlfriend, whatever. She should be talking about that with her sister or her mother or her friends. That's not the topic of conversation you have with a guy that you're just starting to date. So what this should have told him, and again, it's all easier in hindsight to see this, but had he really been clued in, he should have asked himself, why is she talking so much about her ex to me? Well, the answer to that is she's not over it yet. And she is still so traumatized over it, she doesn't have the good sense to realize who she's complaining to. Like I said, she should have chosen some friend of hers from high school or her sister. That's who she should have been venting to, not to a guy that she barely just met. So this went on for a period of time, and eventually he had to end it because it became too obvious that she was not over her previous boyfriend. And when he confronted her about it, she admitted it. She admitted that she was still just in shock and not over her ex-boyfriend. And she even went so far as to tell him, well, she still loves him. And of course, that was the breaking point. That's when he just really said, okay, we're done. We're over with. We're done. Now, as I told him, don't have any angst or sorrow about this. Count yourself lucky. You dodged a bullet. Because the reality is, this woman is not in a position to have a fresh, healthy relationship with anybody. And it was not some revelation at the last minute that she still loved her cheating boyfriend. This had been going on since the day you met her. She was back then still in love with this cheating boyfriend. And further, I told him, this is not a quality woman. A quality woman does not respond to being cheated on by seeking validation and approval from the guy who cheated on her, which is exactly what she's doing. A good woman with self-respect would have said, oh, you cheated on me the first time? We're done. That's what a person with integrity does. They have a line, and when you cross it, you're done. Not her. She doesn't have the good sense to drop a guy that cheated on her. So Listen not just to what a woman is saying, observe, is she really talking directly to you or just sort of to the side, off the shoulder, not really willing to look you in the eye when she's having conversation? And I don't mean she has to maintain eye contact for 20 minutes, but usually when you're dealing with an honest person, they can handle eye contact at least for about a second, every 3 to 5 minutes, just to confirm, hey, we're paying attention to each other. That's normal. But when a person avoids all eye contact, you got to kind of like, okay, there's something to keep in mind. What else is going on here? A good question that has helped me a lot over the years is I ask myself, would a woman in love say such and such? Would a woman in love do such and such? And 9 times out of 10, that'll give you the answer you're looking for.